This is the brave few who came out in the snowstorm. Okay, whenever we have big inclement weather, I'm always wondering, is it just going to be Diana here at Mass this morning like it was last year? Anyway, so today we celebrate the feast day of the conversion of St. Paul, perhaps one of the most significant conversions in the history of humanity. How do we measure these things? But it's still true to say that Paul's conversion was so world-shaping, history-altering in a way that it's just hard to put into words. And we're given to reflect today, there's two options for the first reading. I chose this first option from the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles, where Paul is narrating what happened to him on the road to Damascus. And he says this, right? He says, "On that journey, as I drew near to Damascus, about noon, a great light from the sky suddenly shone around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' I replied, 'Who are you, sir?' And he said to me, 'I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting.'" Okay. There's so much to reflect on with the conversion of St. Paul. And God willing, I'll have many more conversions of St. Paul feast days to celebrate. But I want to draw our attention to what seems to be an insignificant addition to this narration. This is where the Lord drew my attention. Paul adds this, that it was about noon when all of this took place. Why does he add that little detail? Why does he add that little detail? Why does he tell us the time of day? Because details like that matter, and they show up in real love stories. That's why he added it. Like if I were to say to you, tell me the story of when you and your wife or you and your husband met each other, right? Your story would be filled with such specific details, right? Oh, Father, it was a Tuesday. I had just left Keenan Hall. I was making my way across the quad. It was a horribly rainy day. I was walking to calculus class. And there was this girl also walking on the sidewalk ahead of me. She was wearing a yellow jacket, had this green bag with black stripes on it, and she didn't have an umbrella, and I had an umbrella. And I walked up to her. I said, "Excuse me, miss, is it okay if I walk with you and carry this umbrella so you don't get wet?" And she said, "That would be so great. Thank you so much." And that's the rest, and the rest is history. I heard just that story just the other day in marriage prep with a couple. The rest is history. It was about noon. She was wearing a yellow dress, right? What happened to Paul that day is what happened to every young heart that has ever fallen in love, right? Suddenly there's this other person who shows up on the horizon of your experience, the horizon of your world. This person who wasn't there before, they enter in and they make an impact. Right? That's what we mean in the church when we talk about encounter. It's not a thing up here, it's a thing in here. That all of a sudden now there's another person. Ideas can intrigue us, ideas might influence us, but persons, when we meet persons and we fall in love, that's when things like really begin to alter and shift in our hearts and our worlds. You know you've met a person when everything begins to shift and change, right? Paul wasn't converted. Paul wasn't converted because he was yelled at. He wasn't converted because he was scolded. He wasn't converted because Ananias laid out for him the 5 proofs of St. Thomas Aquinas. That'd be pretty hard because Thomas wouldn't live for another 1,200 years. Anyway, he wasn't converted because of any of those things. He was converted because he met a person that day on the road to Damascus. And that person looked at him like with eyes that are ancient, with eyes that are filled with mercy, with eyes that are beauty, right? Beauty is what pierced him that day. Beauty is what looked upon him that day. Beauty spoke to him. Beauty said to him, Jesus, who is beauty, said to him, Saul, I am here and I am real and I am personally present in the ones you are trying to persecute. And I am everything that your heart has been looking for, everything that you've been searching for in the law and the prophets, all of that longing for fulfillment. It converges on me. I am here, is what he's saying. And I'm extending my hand to you in mercy. I'm not coming to you now in vengeance. I'm coming to you now in mercy. That mercy is the beauty of God's love as it approaches sinners. Mercy is the form, if you will, that the beauty of God's love takes on as it approaches sinners. I want to reflect just for a second on that whole concept of beauty being what pierced Paul's heart, because So during the very first canonization mass that Pope Benedict preached when he was the Holy Father, he said this: "The saint is the one who is so fascinated by the beauty of God and by his perfect truth that he is progressively transformed by it. Beauty itself took on flesh in the womb of Mary and gave himself up for us so that we, seized by divine beauty, might be made all beautiful. Unfortunately, few people perceive Christianity as an invitation to be seized by beauty or to be made beautiful by beauty. Instead, as the Pontifical Council for Culture laments, many people perceive Christianity as a submission to commandments made up of prohibitions and limits applied to personal liberty." Beauty is what pierced Paul that day. Christianity begins when beauty pierces us, when he pierces us, when he steps on the scene over the horizon of our world. Like when we have our own "it was about noon" moment with him. Let's ask for St. Paul's intercession today, that again our hearts would be pierced by beauty, that our hearts would be open to encountering his love again today in a fresh new way. Amen.